Hello, I'm John. If you clicked on this video, you want to hear about my Camaro. So, I'll tell you about it. First, I'll answer the question, why? Well, to make a long story short, I once ended up with an RX-4 rotary wagon from Mazda in my yard, and a third-gen Camaro in my garage. Actually, the Mazda was parked right over there. And then I asked myself one day, what would the third gen look like with round headlights? And then I looked over at the Mazda and said, hey, that has round headlights. And I wonder if that grille would fit on that Camaro. So, I got to work. I first started with seeing how it would look, and after some preliminary tests, I said, hey, that looks pretty good. So then I started taking parts off and roughing things in, and I said, hey, that looks even better. And egged on by bad influences such as my friends and my brother, I said, fuck it, I'll go on with this. First, it started not too destructively, just unbolting the grill and the headlight mounts off of the Mazda and roughing them into the Camaro. Just drilling some holes and bolting the headlights in and bolting the grill to that. Actually, vice versa. I hung the grill and then I mounted the headlight mounts to the grill, and then I hung it all on the car to get it centered, and then I drilled the holes for the headlights and mounted it. So it looks right. It's not perfect, but it's not going to SEMA either. We'll get to that. So once I had it roughed in and said, well, I could mount it, then I started looking at, well, getting rid of things in the way. And to those of you who are mad I cut up a third gen, first of all, settle down. There's a gazillion of them still rotting away in people's backyards. You just got to go out and find them. I pass about 3 dozen of them every time I drive through western Ohio. And I've only cut one part off of the frame on the car, which was a flange for mounting the crash bar, because I had to cut the crash bar off horizontally to make room for the headlights, because otherwise there's a bit of an interference fit. So that was all the more destruction I did to it. At the time I figured, well, I can get another crash bar, and if I really hate it, I can get another bumper cover, because I quickly realized I was going to have to do a lot of cutting. So I cut the little flange on the frame, and if I changed my mind I could weld it back. Cut the crash bar in half, which killed my Makita grinder I had at the time. So I got a Milwaukee and got the job done. And got that all roughed in and mounted in, and I had the front frame and supports in, and then came the easy part of cutting up the bumper cover to make room for the grill assembly I just installed. And after eyeballing many cuts, I had it in, and the result was, well, it was great to me. The internet hated it. One guy was very mad that I cut up an appreciating asset, which I didn't know. He should have told me before I cut it up. Anyways, I was happy with the results. Then came the hard part of finishing the job and making it look somewhat presentable, so I didn't get turned away at car shows or, slurs hurled at me while I drove down the road. So after thinking about it for a while, I decided sheet metal would work. Bend it by hand, cut it to fit, and it worked for me. So I started robbing sheet metal off of the various junk cars I have in my yard, which you can't see, and I'm not going to show. And put some metal here and metal there, and filled in the gaps at the time with construction foam with body filler over it. Yes, I know that's a horrible thing to do, but I was just trying to get it done at the time, because I started this in early spring and summer was around the corner and I wanted to drive the car. So I did what I had to get it out the door. Figured if I hated it, I can work on it again. And I did work on parts of it again, because the gaps between the sheet metal in the new part of the bumper and the plastic, rubber, fiberglass shit that the stock bumper was made out of. That gap there, I had filled in with construction foam and sanded down and put Bondo over it, or body filler. It's not Bondo by name. That held up good for about a week, but I guess the movements between the two materials caused it to crack, so I ripped that out and put a little bit of sheet metal in the bottom of it and then layered body filler over the top, and that held up much better because I tied that piece of sheet metal to the rubber bumper. Actually, no. So I tied that piece of sheet metal into the big curve next to the headlight and kind of to the bumper. I didn't want to put screws in the rubber bumper because that would look bad, worse than what I had already done to the car. But eventually I made it work. Big flat piece of sheet metal on the bottom, sitting on top of the frame horns, I guess, what support the bumper. Screwed that down. Hand bent pieces of sheet metal on the outside to kind of surround the grill itself. Bent by hand and mounted by hand. So if you look really hard at it, they're not exactly straight, but you'd really have to stare at it for a long time to notice that. And most people don't stare at it that long. Not that they hate it, they just, say, hey, that's cool, go on. So, got that done. Filled in the gaps. Turn signals were off of a 86 Ford Ranger. Trimmed to fit, shoved in there. Friction fit. And then I used the construction foam trick around them and the bod shaved down and the body filler. That's holding up pretty good. I might have to readdress that. Hell, I will have to readdress that, but we'll get to that. And painted the whole thing, and it looked pretty good. I will be honest, from some angles it doesn't look all that great. Mainly from the side, because it has this massive bookshelf in the front of it, which is kind of a downside. But the upside is it holds all my tools when I work on the car, so that's good. And if you get the angles just right, looks frickin' amazing, in my opinion, that is. Because I've always wanted a 70s looking car. I can't afford a 70s looking car. I can't afford to drive a 70s looking car very hard or very fast or in a manner that I enjoy, because they cost like, I don't know, $15,000, $20,000. I haven't priced one recently, I might be wrong. But usually they're not made to be flogged down the road, at least not at their price point, unless you got a rusty chassis. Because the time I bought the Camaro, I was thinking in my head, okay, the body itself is going to be like $5,000, engine another few grand, and the driveline another few grand. I was expecting to spend like $12,000 on a 70s car of that would fill my desires, fill my needs. And then this Camaro came along for $5,500, so I bought it. And then I already had the RX-4, so I said, I'll put these parts together, and I thought it turned out pretty good. So after successfully butchering the front end of the car, I decided I'll butcher the rear end of the car by modifying the taillights. I didn't want to touch the bumper, I got no problem with that, but the taillights themselves just didn't really excite me. So I got an idea from watching a Hater's Garage video where he painted the reverse segment of his taillights on a Plymouth with translucent red paint to turn them red, so then he had a nice wide red taillights. And I said, I'll try that. Of course, the Chevy taillight has amber lens on top of the clear lens, but I figured I could figure something out. So I got a used lens off of eBay, tested with that, and learned I can't paint the inside of the lens because it's still amber on the outside. Paint the outside of the lens and that turns it a shade of red. But I said, fuck it, might as well. And if I really hate it, I can always get new taillights or sand off the paint, and put it back to stock. But while I was at that, I said, why not add another segment so it's a very wide tail light, which took a little doing. I accomplished that by buying a housing, sectioning the housing into individual sections, and sectioning the lens into individual sections, and then deleting the black part of the tail light, what holds the license plate lights. Because you pull that out, and there's a nice little hole there that you can attach your other light housing into. Glue that to the rest of the light, and then you glue your lens to that housing, and everything's sealed up. And if you put some time into it, you could make it flush. I didn't. I had somewhere to be. Of course, we'll get to that. But there, looks good from 15 feet, which you're not getting any closer than that to me on the highway, unless you're trying to rear end me, which I would rather you didn't. So yeah, I had the big wide red lenses painted up. I'm aware it's probably going to peel. I'm probably going to have to do it again, but that's fine. Paint it up, glue it in, and then there was a matter of lighting them up. After much deliberation and a couple suggestions on having sequential lights, I said, yeah, sequentials would be cool. Problem is I have 4-segment taillights, and most sequential kits are for 3-segment lights. What with your mainly Mustangs, I guess, because they have 3-segment sequential lights. But I have 4, and I racked my brain many months trying to figure out how to make that work. If I could get like a 4-segment sequential module and wire that in and somehow use a series of relays to make the brake sections work. But eventually I decided I would cheat, and the inside 2 segments would be joined in series, so they would act like a big single bulb when they blink, because they're all LEDs, they're not pulling that much power. So I said, fuck it, why not? And when they blink, it's not so obvious that it's soldered together. Kind of a trick of the eye or something, I guess. Well, it's kind of pulled away by the other sequential parts. And it was somewhat easy enough to do. Soldering them together, that is. Wiring the sequential module into the car harness and then into the light harness was a utter pain in the ass, because the car harness does not use the same color code. Because the module harness does not use the same color code as the car harness. So if you're wiring them together based on color, you're connecting your brake light wire to your ground wire, and you're going to burn out the module. And I did that once. So I had to order another module kit off of Summit, and then put that in. And yeah, I'm telling you, half the problem was just keeping my wires straight, because I had to wire like 24 wires together. It was a pain in the ass. Although doing one side was hard enough, but moving on to the other, it got a little easier. But then that module for that other side somehow broke, but I already had a second kit, so I just swapped that module in right quick. And when all was said and done, I had a great big set of taillights on the back of my car with sequential turn signals. And as far as the reverse light went, I just had to get a LED light off of the shelf and mount that under the bumper and run a wire from the run a wire from the little switch on the transmission when you shift into reverse. Run that to the light, because for whatever reason the wiring harness was all sorts of screwed up. Not from my doing, at least as far as I know, but the wire what's supposed to illuminate your reverse lights on the car harness wasn't getting 12 volts when it was shifted to reverse with the key on. So I just ran a wire from the switch in the transmission to the light. No biggie. Not like anybody's gonna crawl under my car and inspect my work anyways. So I modded the front, I modded the rear, I drove it around a bit. I got a lot of, some mostly good remarks, and some people were kind of scratching their head like, why the hell would you do that? I said, I don't know, be different, look cool. Like I said, I like 70s look. Looks awesome in my opinion, front and back, with some minor problems here and there. But I love it. I really, really do. I'm very pleased with what I did. But if you don't like it, I have good news for you. You're never going to have to see it again, at least in the flesh. So now you're probably wondering, what the hell did you do to this car? Well, a few weeks ago, had a particularly long week at work and decided I'm going to take me a nice vacation. I got a buddy in New York with an open invitation to visit him, and I said, fuck it. I'm going to cruise out there and see him. And none other than this. Which, road tripping a 40-year-old Camaro halfway across the country and back, because I live in Minnesota, the northwestern part of Minnesota, around Moorhead, that's vague enough. It's probably not the best idea, but if I did what most people think is the best idea for me, I'd be boring as fuck. So, I got back from work after a long week, worked on the car a bit, peeled out one night, spent 2 days road tripping myself across the Iron Range and up over the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, having lots of fun. And then down and across Ohio, nothing to see out there, sorry, I don't have any pictures of that. And across Pennsylvania, the boring parts. Actually, I'll be honest, I got about halfway across the state and was hating life and just fucking sent it. And then across New Jersey with no problems and into New York. Up over the George Washington Bridge, having a wild time revving the hell out of it in the tunnels. And out into Long Island, where my buddy lives. And 10 feet in front of his driveway, what do? I get in a fender bender with an 18-year-old driving her grandpa's BMW. I shit you not. You couldn't make up a better story. But that's the whole reason I took the trip, was for an adventure, stories to make, and I got them. I was a little distraught, because this is about 5 weekends of work there in the front. The rear was about another 5 or 6. But I was just having a good chuckle at the time, because, you know, you drive 1,500 miles across the country, and you fuck it up right in front of his driveway. But, it is what it is. I was just happy both cars could drive away, and my front end alignment wasn't fucked up. So, anyways, I was still in New York. My front end was still fucked up. I had to drive back. So we removed some of the more loose parts of the car. I wired everything else up. All the lights worked. I was gobsmacked by that. Turn signals worked. Okay, everything but the inside high beam there worked. And I wasn't planning on driving at night on the way back. So, you know, I had enough lights I was legal. But yeah, about, I don't know, 1,800 miles. Car didn't skip a beat. Only real problem was half the dashboard lights dying, but it's a 40-year-old Chevy, what do you expect? And little fender bender, but it adds character to the car. And I get to redo it all over again. Do it better this time. I am not gonna get a new bumper and cut it up like this. That would just be wasteful in my eyes. I know I cut up a bumper, but yeah, it wasn't that stellar to begin with. It's just an old Chevy, you know, man. Get off my back. But I plan on redoing this front end. I plan on taking the cover off and somehow making a front fascia from sheet metal. I actually kicked around the idea of taking the rest of the RX-4 front end and attaching it to this, but the more I look at the two parts, the fenders and the car, the more I realize it's going to be a major pain in the ass putting them together. I might just bend the whole thing out of sheet metal by hand, and I'm not going to weld it straight to the fenders. There's a way to attach it that involves bolts and nuts and not the hot metal glue gun. But what I have in mind is going to involve cutting the rest of the frame horns off of the front, which I know I was reluctant to do the first time, which is why it has that shelf to begin with. But, you know, it's been in a front end accident. I'd say fuck it. Chop it off, try it again. Go for gusto, you know. Nobody talks about you if you just lay in bed all day and do nothing. So, that's my Camaro. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't be obligated to subscribe or anything, because I'm not obligated to upload a video every month. I might upload a video about it. Well, shit, if I upload this, I probably will do a video about it. Don't expect another video about this sometime this year, unless there's a massive outpouring of interest and views and attention to really motivate me to rebuild this. Then I might do it this year. Summer's not over yet. It's just getting started, kind of. But, you know, I work a lot, so I really only have my weekends to work on this. But, yeah, you like it, subscribe, like, comment. Tell me how bad it is. Might help engagement, might not. But, till then, see you guys around.